Hi again, everybody. Now our lightning talk will be by Edgar Zamora. And Edgar is a data consultant at Big Bend Community College in Washington. And today he's going to talk about using R to improve workflows for building strategic plans to help students succeed in college.
Hi, so my name is Edgar Zamora. I'm going to be talking about how did I do that, redesigning a workflow in R. And so I'll be talking about identifying gaps in your current workflow, connecting to databases using the dbplyr package, importing and transforming said data, building out a report, and then ultimately some concluding thoughts. So the current workflow when I came into the position was, well, we had data stored in databases. We would connect to it. Specifically us, we use Microsoft Access. Then you would export that data into Excel, do some transformations, visualizations, create tables, and then copy and paste those into Word. And so it is not a linear process, but you can see if you find an error in Word, you got to go all the way to the beginning. And so it becomes very cumbersome and not very reproducible, not efficient. And there's a lot of error. There's potential for error. And so what I thought was, well, in the R ecosystem and in RStudio, they have the connection pane, and there are a lot of packages. So instead of using Access, we can use a dbplyr package. Instead of visualizing data in Excel and creating tables in Excel, we could use ggplot and use dplyr for transformations and manipulations, and then ultimately use R Markdown and bookdown instead of Word. And so when it comes to connecting to databases with dbplyr, that's probably going to be the hardest part of the entire process. But in addition to using that package, you can use DBI and ODBC connection. And so once you create the connection, you can save that string into the con object. And going forward, you're going to be using that con object to connect to the database. And so when it comes to writing code, it's very simple. And so once you make that initial connection using the table function from the dplyr package, you can then use regular dplyr verbs as if you were working with any other data set in R. And so the way it works is that you write R code and then it translates the R code into their SQL equivalents, and then that SQL code is executed on the actual database. And the results are not brought in until you use a collect function from the dplyr package. And so the size of the database will really determine how much dplyr code you use, because you don't want to use a lot. You want to bring in as much or what you need. And so when you do collect, you'll see the results that are very, you might have seen them with you see them, the results will appear in the console, and it should be very similar to using any other data set, whether it be like a CSV or anything like that. And so after you import the data, then you can do simple importing and simple dplyr verbs, or you can get very complex, like you can see here in this snippet. And so previously I showed you I did a lot of verbs and transformations before the collection. Here I just bring in what I need and then use the verbs to then manipulate the data so that I can have it in one location instead of having in Excel and exporting it and copy and pasting. And then you can comment it so you can have reproducibility in the future, so that you don't have to ask yourself, how did I do that? Or go to your boss and say, how did you come up with this calculation, and so forth. And so when it comes to visualizations, instead of doing them in Excel and creating tables and then copying and pasting them over for the tables, you can use packages like the GT package, the Flex Table package, and the Cable package. Instead of using visualizations in Excel, you can do things like ggplot, and there Plotly, and a tremendous amount of other packages that are available to you. And so when it comes to building out the report, so after you do everything and you collect your data, create your visualizations, create your tables, then you can use R Markdown, and specifically we use the bookdown package. And the reason for using bookdown was bookdown allows us to create one single PDF, is what in a lot of reports want, one single PDF. And so we decided to go with using bookdown. And so specifically for that single PDF, you have to specify PDF_document in your YAML header. And so this is the metadata that you've probably seen in your R Markdown documents. And so you have to specify the site as bookdown, the NIT as render book. And then specifically in your YAML file, you want to make sure that it says PDF_document. And then in order to export us into a PDF, you have to have tidy text installed. And so the concluding thoughts and everything that you can get from this is that there is a lot of work up front, but the payoff is tremendous because it avoids you asking, how did I do that? Where's the error, copying and pasting, and having a process that can be very cumbersome. And it avoids the error of jumping between programs because everything can be done within RStudio and everything within the R ecosystem. And then in the future, all you have to do is simply rerun your code, look at your comments, and if there's things that change from one year to the other, then you can just simply change those. And then you can take your workflow to the next level by using purr, using the map functions, including Shiny, and then ultimately turning it all into a package that you can host on GitHub. And so here are some extra information on, learning SQL, the joins, and everything like that.
Thank you, Edgar. That was great information. Yeah.